Arsenal fans, the January market is open. Now, for the most part of my time supporting Arsenal, I've been crying out for Arsenal to be active in January. And for the first time in a long time, Arsenal fans are quite happy with the squad. Now, it's not saying that we won't do anything, and it's not saying that we shouldn't do anything. Um, but you know what? I've just got a feeling that Andrea Berta wants some January signings. There's been a lot of reports in the last couple of days that Arsenal monitoring some players, so I thought we'd look into that today. I also think what we'll talk about is what other clubs are doing that might affect some of the transfers this window, but more importantly, what might look to be happening over at Manchester City. Now, a lot of people are saying that we don't need any January signings. Some are saying that we do. Obviously, you're going to get that mixed opinion. For me, the way that Manchester City are moving with links to Mark Guehi and Anton Semenyo, I think Arsenal might react. I think Arsenal might need to react. And I think it's important to look at what areas of the squad that we do look to strengthen. I don't think Arsenal should just go and pluck somebody out just to say that we've done something when really and truly they're not going to be used. We've seen players like Miles Lewis-Skelly, like Ethan Nwaneri so far that haven't really got the minutes that perhaps they deserve or perhaps they felt they were going to be getting. So I think it's important that Arsenal, if they do business, that it's wise, shrewd, and that it is going to actually impact and maximise our chance of trophies this season. So that's the first thing to say. What I thought we'd do is just look at the players that we're looking at, the monitoring that Arsenal is potentially going to be going into the market for. Now, I don't think we're going to be busy. Let me be frank with you. I don't think Arsenal have put themselves in a position in the summer where they need to be busy. Certainly last January, I think everybody was stunned that Arsenal didn't go into the market to look at an attacking player. But this January, I think the summer has sorted us out. Andrea Berta with 8 signings, the most that Arsenal have signed in however long I can remember. So I think it's important to look at what we might do realistically as opposed to just throwing names out there. But all we can do is look at the rumours and look at what's happening right now. Andrea Berta has not been sitting there with a cigar on a barbecue on a jet ski like a certain Mr. Edu did. He's been very busy from what we can understand and looking at how Arsenal can strengthen, not just in January, but also in the summer. Now, a lot of people are crying out for positions, midfielders, attackers, maybe even a defender with the injuries that we've had. I think Arsenal putting himself in a position where we're not desperate. If Arsenal don't do anything, I certainly won't be crying. I'll be maybe a little bit disappointed that we weren't able to push on and try and get somebody in. But I think for me, to say that I'd be losing my head, having a meltdown or disappointed in the club would just be a lie. I wouldn't be. I actually feel like Arsenal have got strength in depth when everybody is fit. Now, in the next week or two, we could get a, God forbid this happens, a horrendous injury to a couple of players, and we might have to be forced to go into the market. But right now, with everybody fit, I really don't think Arsenal are in that position. But there are strong rumours today suggesting that Arsenal have made an offer to Real Madrid for Brahim Diaz. Now, it looks as if the offer is around 50 million euros. It doesn't sound like Arsenal are the only team that have been interested in Brahim Diaz. We obviously know that he's playing over in the AFCON at the moment with Morocco, who are doing very, very well. And the 26-year-old is absolutely on fire. We know that he can play on the right-hand side and the left-hand side, that he's had good spells when he started at Manchester City as a promising player, moved to Real Madrid, went on loan for a couple of seasons at AC Milan where he scored goals, and he's obviously been a good squad player for Real Madrid. Now, this is not a player that will walk straight into the Arsenal first team. I don't believe that. However, I think he's going to give a brilliant option for what is Saka, Madueke, Martinelli and Trossard already. And we don't know the long-term future of any of those players. Bukayo Saka and Madueke look to be a long-term, but Martinelli and Trossard really have a question mark about their kind of long-term future. Trossard because of his age, and obviously Martinelli because he's not really looking at signing that new long-term deal for Arsenal. So I think this would be a fairly interesting signing that would make sense. I would rather us go for Rodrigo if we're looking at Real Madrid and maybe a couple of other players. But Brahim Diaz is apparently the one that Arsenal are looking at. And this one kind of shocked me, really. I never saw this one come in. It wasn't a player that I had on my list of wants or needs. I think Semenyo, due to him being Premier League proven, was one that Arsenal fans were talking about. But for me, Brahim Diaz has always had talent. And at 26 years old, he's kind of at his prime. He's kind of at his best. I think he scored 4 goals so far in the AFCON. And it's a player who, let's be real, for Morocco right now, who look like they're potentially going to win this tournament over in Africa. I think it would be a very interesting signing. Now, will Real Madrid want to let him go? He's not really getting the minutes. He's not getting the game time, from what I understand. He is seen as a squad player alongside the likes of Rodrigo, who hasn't had the minutes he would like or maybe deserves. Arda Güler has been getting into the team and he's wanting more minutes. That's what it's like playing for Real Madrid. I think it's difficult to be guaranteed a first team slot unless you're the likes of Vinny Jr. and, of course, Kylian Mbappe. And some have even said that Vinny Jr. hasn't been on the best of form this season and that really some of the players like Brahim Diaz, Rodrigo and co probably deserve more minutes. So I think he would be interested in Arsenal. I think he'd fancy his chances in starting in that Arsenal side. I think he can play on the left-hand side, although Trossard has been fantastic. I don't know long-term if we see a future for him in the next 3 or 4 years due to his age in that position. And Martinelli has been very good this season for Arsenal. So I don't think it's a position that we're desperate for, that we're crying out for. And if I'm honest, I think maybe the summer would be the time to look at a left winger for Arsenal. But Andrea Berta apparently is looking now. And I love that, if that's true. I absolutely love the fact that that could be a position that we strengthen. And if Brahim Diaz is the guy that they want to bring in, then who am I to say that we shouldn't be? The other position or player in that position that we have been linked with and monitoring is Kenan Yildiz. Now, this is a guy that I like a lot. You know, when you just use the eye test, aesthetically pleasing, you look at players and think, wow, he's one of them. 20 years old, Turkish winger, plays on the left, can play across the front three, 6'1", has got unbelievable technical ability and knows where the goal is. I think he scored 15 goals for Juventus. He's a player that's definitely wanted by many clubs and has been monitoring by many clubs. Chelsea, I think, were interested. Arsenal interested. I think even Tottenham were interested. So definitely London clubs interested in this player. And I just think this would be the one. If I could pick a winger, it probably would be Yildiz or Rodrigo. Of course, he's one mentioned, but I don't think Arsenal have been linked as heavily of late. Certainly we were in the summer. But this would be a player that I really like. And I think would be a player that could take Arsenal to that kind of, you know, Arsenal have always had that kind of winger. They've always had that exciting winger, whether it be a Robert Pires, a Freddie Ljungberg, whether it be Alexis Sanchez. Arsenal have always had that winger that you look at and just go, I love watching him. And I think Kenan Yildiz would be that for Arsenal. I've always been a fan of what I've seen from him, and I don't watch Serie A like some. But when I look at what he's been doing for Juventus, he's the one that I look at instantly and go, wow, what's he? Who's he? And I don't think Arsenal really had a player like that that stands out other than the obvious, which is Saka. I think that the other players in and around that left-hand side and the players that have come in for Bukayo Saka have been very good players, but how many of them get you off your seat? How many of them do you look at and think, I love watching him? I know Trossard and Martinelli have been great and Madueke has been promising this season, but I don't look at any other than Saka and get off of my seat and think, oh my God, like, what am I seeing here? And I think Kenan Yildiz would bring that to Arsenal. Now, I don't think he's going to be cheap. That's by any means. And I think Arsenal have got money. So I don't think there's an issue here. I don't think Juventus would be against selling him if it was for the right money. And I don't think that Kenan Yildiz would be against coming to a club like Arsenal. So I think we need to keep an eye on this one. We've been monitoring for some time. He's been the player that everybody keeps talking about. Arsenal fans want him. Maybe we go and do something in the summer. Or maybe Andrea Berta doesn't want to wait that long and puts us in the frame for him this January. Now, if it isn't going to be Yildiz and it isn't going to be Brahim Diaz, there is obviously other names. People have spoken about Rafael Leao. People have spoken about Rodrigo. But right now, I'm only going to go for the players that we've been loosely linked with or strongly rumoured to be putting an offer for. And it looks like Brahim Diaz is actually someone that we're looking to put an offer in for, which would very much surprise me. I never saw this name. I never thought this would happen. But if it happens, we've got to trust Andrea Berta and Mikel Arteta that they believe he is the guy. The other position I think everyone is crying out for is what happens if Declan Rice does get injured. And there's been very strong rumours of young 18-year-old Buadi. Now, I don't know anything about Buadi until I look at some of his skills. And he looks really good for an 18-year-old. I think TalkSport did a piece on him saying that he looks like the Wayne Rooney of 18 years old. He doesn't look 18. He doesn't play like he's 18. He plays like an adult who's been experienced in the game. The physical presence that he has at 6'1" in that midfield 18 years old, but certainly doesn't play like a kid. He's been very impressive for Lille over in France, and a lot of teams are looking at him. Manchester United have been linked, Arsenal heavily linked. And I just think this would make sense. And the reason I think this would make sense is because Declan Rice, really, there's nobody else like him. You might go and find yourself a Pedri or a Vitinha that people would say was highly rated higher. There's that argument that Caicedo's better and that Rice is better. But really and truly, none of those names are coming to Arsenal. So if you are trying to replace Declan Rice or find cover for him, you really have to be sensible with it. You're not going to find another Declan Rice. And that's why this one just makes sense. Now, I don't believe this will be a cheap signing either. I think they're talking around about 50 million euros because of how highly rated that he is. But I just think this one makes more sense. I think a summer move for a left winger would make more sense. But right now in January, for what I feel that we could be potentially short in, this one just makes more sense for me. He's a box-to-box midfielder. He's fantastic off the ball. If you go and look at him on YouTube, on his skill sets, the majority of it is him winning the ball back and spraying the ball wide and driving forward with it. This is a player who I think has incredible potential. Now, we've seen players like this before that have not gone on to do what we hoped or what we might thought. But this one just makes sense and just seems to me to be worth a punt. I don't think that we've got anybody in midfield other than Declan Rice that has the legs. I don't think we've got anybody that if he was out or we had cover for him that has the energy and drive in that midfield. And I just don't know that Mourinho is that guy. I don't think Mikel Arteta trusts yet Miles Lewis-Skelly in that role, albeit I think that would probably be perfect if he was to get a knock or suspension for him to come in. Zubimendi and Norgard are definitely more holding midfielders or seem to be as more holding midfielders, although Zubimendi can definitely get around the pitch. But I just think if you want more of a box-to-box, there's potentially a player missing there if we needed cover for Declan Rice or if he was, God forbid, to get injured. So I think Buwadi would probably make sense this January window. I think it's one that we need to look more seriously at. And I do think that it would be in his interest to come to Arsenal. We've seen players come over from France for years now and do well at Arsenal. And I just feel like he would be one that would be interested in that move. I hope that we're interested in this player. I really do. And he's very, very thought of highly in France. So I think he's kind of got a little bit of everything from what you can see. He's young. He's got potential. He's got talent. He looks physical enough. He looks great off the ball, very good on the ball. Looks like he's got an engine. And he's also got that kind of physical presence as well, being 6'1". So I think he's highly rated and one that would absolutely make sense. A lot of people have been talking about what we do in defence, maybe at fullback or at centre-back, because we do have a lot of players in that position. We're kind of stacked. But we've had a lot of injuries. And a lot of people are saying, go and put our names in the hat for Mark Guehi. Go and sort ourselves out at centre-back because Mosquera's still out and Calafiore's not back yet. And Nkapie's been and out the side. Gabriel's had that injury. Saliba's had knocks. Timber, also Ben White coming back from injury. And when you look at it like that, you think, wow, we're stacked. But all of them had a question mark this season about their fitness. Every single player, in fact. Today we've been monitoring Tino Livramento. Whoops, that's the wrong one. That's Yildiz. Black and white got me, people. Tino Livramento. Now, I don't think this is going to be cheap. And I've got my thoughts on this player. I think he's exceptional. At right back and at left back. He's been Newcastle's best fullback, in my opinion, for a good while now. And I am shocked by this one. We are monitoring Tino Livramento. This would definitely not be a January move. It would be a summer move. I think there's a question mark over the long-term future of Ben White. I think Timber has definitely taken that right-back position, and rightly so. We've obviously got question marks at left-back when Calafiore's out. Does he trust Lewis-Skelly? Is Nkapie seen as a left-back cover or more of a left centre-back cover? And Livramento can play on right-back and left-back. Now, I don't think this is going to be cheap. You're probably going to be looking at 80 million plus for Tino Livramento. Manchester City are interested as well. And I'm surprised that we put ourselves in the name for the hat, but it looks like we have today. Now, my only question mark about Tino Livramento is his injury record. If you look at him for a youngster at 23 years old, he's been injured a lot. He's had a hell of a lot of injuries at Southampton when he was a youngster at Chelsea and now, of course, at Newcastle. Long-term injuries at ACL. He's had lots of muscle injuries as well. And I think he's missed something like 23 months at the age of just 23. Now, that's a hell of a lot of football that he's missed at a young age. Now, there's no denying that when he's fit, he's outstanding. And I do think that he's one of the best fullbacks that we have in the Premier League when you look at what he's done for Newcastle. I'd just be surprised if we go for this one due to the injuries. And also, I think we've got to be surprised that Newcastle will want to sell him. And if they do want to sell him, it will be a lot of money. He's got the English tax. He's got the age at 23 years old. He's definitely got more potential. He's versatile at right back and left back. It would be a brilliant signing for anybody, let's be real, that's going for the title. So I think that Manchester City probably are in more need of a fullback of his type. I think Arsenal would be a little bit greedy if we're getting Tino Livramento. He's not going to start for Arsenal. So really and truly, this one just sounds a little bit like it's someone monitoring, but probably more than likely, in my opinion anyway, probably won't happen. Now, of course, that leaves the only position left, which we haven't spoken about, which was everybody's name on the lips for the summer, which was the striker. Now, Victor Gyökeres has come in to add to Kai Havertz, Marino, who's played there, and of course, Gabriel Jesus. Now, it seems in the summer that a lot of people are already looking at what striker can come in. A lot of talk on Julian Alvarez coming in. Some people are saying go all out for a striker again on top of Gyökeres if it doesn't work. Victor Osimhen has been mentioned by some Arsenal fans as someone that they'd like to see coming in. But we are actually linked this January with Igor Tayon. Now, I don't know much about this lad, but I do know that he's young and one for the future. He's 17 years old. He's a England's, he's kind of Polish / England, which is why he has the name Igor Tayon. I'm not Tajon. I'm being told it's Igor Tayon. 17 years old, very highly rated at Blackburn, someone that Arsenal were linked with last summer, I believe, and looks to be not signing a contract with Blackburn and would be available on the cheap or maybe even for a free for Arsenal. So watch this space. I don't know anything about him. Go and have a look at him on YouTube. See what you think. I know it's quite dangerous sometimes when you do that because he will turn into R9 on YouTube. And I thought Mustafi looked like Cannavaro or Sergio Ramos when I did that. So you've got to be a bit careful. But I do like the sound of it. And he's obviously one for the future. Now, he's not going to come in and take the place of Victor Gyökeres. He's not going to come in and give stern competition to any of those names I've mentioned, but he's obviously one for the future. And it's one that we're looking towards. I think it's important that Arsenal still look to the future. I know that we've got a young squad, but we do need the next generation behind the William Salibas and behind the Bukayo Sakas of this world. So I think it's important that we look at the youth and we look at the academy and see if we can either get in a couple of 17, 18-year-olds. And even if you have to loan them, it's really not a problem. We've seen Jack Wilshere and Aaron Ramsey and all these guys have loan moves before that all did well at Arsenal. So maybe there's reports that we could be looking at a couple of outs that could be loaned out. Maybe we're looking at Ethan Nwaneri, who at the moment looks like he's not getting enough game time and minutes for Arsenal. I don't think it's good for his development at the age of 18. And maybe it could be an idea to loan him. Now, I wouldn't. I'd be keeping everybody at Arsenal. I think it's really important that we're this close to a title, that we keep our squad strong. But if Ethan is knocking on the door saying, look, I need more minutes. If I'm not going to get them here, then I do need a loan move. And maybe if he doesn't play at Portsmouth, maybe if he doesn't get games in the game against Kairat at the Champions League, then maybe Ethan deserves a move. Maybe we give Ethan at the end of January to Bournemouth on loan, who I believe are interested, and he goes and has a good rest of his career or rest of his season, should I say, at Bournemouth. Now, I love Ethan. He's actually one of my favourite players to watch. I absolutely love everything about him. I think he's exciting. I think he's intent on going forward. I think he's positive. I think he's attack-minded. He's not afraid to have a shot. He's got a wand of a left foot. We've seen him score unbelievable goals already. But if Ethan wants to go on loan, that's different to wanting to leave. And I know that there was that kind of question mark about Ethan's long-term future. And for those that were saying, oh, he's out of order for doing that, I kind of did say, like, it is his right to have his future panned out for him. And it's his right to ask questions about where he sees his long-term future in his career. So for me, I don't think it's a bad thing. Ethan asking for game time, Ethan asking for where they see his future and development. This is his career. So for me, I think it's fair. Those that are saying he's 18, he needs to calm down and chill out, you'll get your game time. I actually think that's wrong, because I think at 18, you should be at that talent. You should be playing and you should be getting minutes. Not every game, but you should be getting 20 minutes here and there. You should be starting some games and coming off. You should be getting a number of minutes which makes you believe that, one, you deserve, but also, two, that you're allowing your career to develop. when you're training all the time, it's great, but you need match fitness. You need to keep developing. And at 18, it's a vital age. So I think it would be fair if he would want a loan move. If he's not going to be seen in the plans of Mikel Arteta for the rest of this season, then I think it'd be absolutely fair for him to ask for that move. As for other outgoings, I just don't see any. I don't think Lewis Skelly should be loaned out. I think he's played good minutes this season, and I think we need him. Jesus, likewise, I think a lot of people thought that he'd just get fit and be sold. I think he's proven that he can come and do a job, scoring goals from the bench and starting certain games. I think that Kai Havertz, rumors are that we're going to be trying to tie him down to a new deal. I know he hasn't played so much this season, but we all know that he's loved by Mikel Arteta. So I think the rest of the incomings will probably be towards the summer. We've obviously been linked with some of the players today and monitoring players for January. So let's watch this space. Do me a favor, people. Make sure you hit like, make sure you hit subscribe, and we will see you, of course, on the next one. We're out of here.